repeating this false claim that Republicans voted to reduce the number of Border Patrol agents, even though the Washington Post gave the administration 3 Pinocchios for that.
So we don't believe it's a false claim. Our statements were very direct here. Last year, House GOP voted, and not only did they vote for it, but they touted their Limit, Save, Grow Act. That's the act.
Well, and they vowed that it would never affect Border Patrol.
They voted for and touted it, right? This is an act. And this would have forced the elimination of 2,000 Border Patrol agents. That's what this act that they touted, that they voted for in the House. So that was their proposal. And that was what they voted for back in May.
I actually have learned something here. I'm going to start using that tactic anytime someone says something that is inconvenient for me and is based in fact. I'm just going to simply say, well, we just don't believe that to be true. We just don't know. That was Karine Jean-Pierre or Karine Johnson, depending on, who you want to believe and how they introduce her. Welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch here with you. Bottom of this third hour. You can listen coast to coast, watch the simulcast, the video component of the radio program as well. Check out the podcast. Joining us now, Representative Thomas Massie from the beautiful state of Kentucky. He's in D.C. Pray for him. He's in D.C. He's been there doing the Lord's work, and he joins us now via Skype. Congressman, it's good to see you. I just wanted to kind of get your little quick reaction to that. She just, that's not her truth.
Oh, just make it up. You just fake it till you make it, is their motto, I guess. And by the way, I'm trying to do the Lord's work. I don't think anything we are doing here this week the Lord would approve of, though.
Oh my gosh. Say that. I love that sound. We're just going to keep that sound bite for forever. Something that can be said about that with DC. This big fight at the border, I know that there's this back and forth over, we've got the CR, there's demands for properly funding the border, but then that's also met with demands from the left. That's, well, we have to fund more of whatever we're funding. I don't think we actually have a tally of what we're paying for in Ukraine. I just don't know how much longer Democrats are going to think this is tenable for the administration or for really all of these border towns. We had 290,000 plus come across the border, as you know, Congressman, just in the month of December. Cartels are making $35 million just off a 245-mile stretch of the border. Is somebody getting a cut in D.C.? I'm trying to figure out why this hasn't been done. This seems like an easy win for Democrats.
It would be a win. You would think in an election year, Biden would want to handle the most pertinent issue in front of us. It's almost like we'd be doing him a favor to take care of the border and to shut it down leading up to the election, because he could take credit for it. But, they can't do the right thing even when it would suit them better than the wrong thing. And so they want to keep overrunning this country with illegal aliens.
I know that in the Senate, they're forging ahead on this border bill. There's been a lot of back and forth. It seems bad. What I've read, it seems like worse than what we have.
I just looked over the bullet points again. It looks like an amnesty bill, basically.
It's like 2018 Part 2.
Yeah, it's, and that's the problem. Paul Ryan had an amnesty first, wall second type of funding bill that they kept trying to get the president to do and eventually did. We need to put the wall first, and then maybe we can talk about those other things. But frankly, we need to start deporting people, or else it's still just another magnet. Imagine, you pay $5,000 to a coyote to come over here. It's like your life savings, and then you get sent back to the place you started. That only needs to happen a few times, and people aren't going to spend that money or take those risks to their lives to get here if they end up where they started.
Is taxing the remittances, or at least doing something to be able to recoup, is this something, how easy would this be able to pull off in the House?
I think there'd be an appetite for it. This is something that Ron DeSantis has mentioned on the trail. I've been campaigning with him in South Carolina, Iowa, and New Hampshire. Trump said he would get, Mexico to pay for the wall. And then when he got elected, he said, I'm sorry, there's really no way to do that. But there is a way to do that. And Ron DeSantis says you just tax the remittances. I think we could get it done.
That would be great to get that done. Have that force multiplier at the southern border. I want to talk more about what's going on in D.C. really quickly about their primary. We had the Iowa results, and I always tell people, look, let this play out, because I think as many people deserve to have their voices heard in this as possible. I just don't think it's very representative of our republic to just say like, okay, only Iowans get to have their say. And even then it was kind of low turnout. I mean, 115,000, 20% of the registered voters, half of that, half the delegates going into New Hampshire and South Carolina. I mean, what ends up happening will happen, but I think as many people should play into this as possible and not fewer people. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what we learned in Iowa and what we're going to see in New Hampshire is that until this becomes a head-to-head race, it's going to be hard for anybody to compete with Trump. When you've got 3 or 4 or even 2 people splitting the vote against an incumbent, by the way, he got barely 50%. This is not a good sign for somebody who's effectively the incumbent Republican president to barely get 50%. And that's, probably about where the polls show that he is in New Hampshire. I think this has got to become a head-to-head race. Now, Ron DeSantis was second in Iowa. Nikki Haley said that she would be second, and her Democrat donors were relying on her to come in second. Now, she also told them that she was going to win New Hampshire. And I think if, when she drops that ball ultimately, because she's not going to win New Hampshire, she's not competing in Nevada. She's not even going to get a single delegate there because she's not competing in those caucuses. And then when you go to South Carolina, she's not going to win her home state. I think her corporate donors and her Democrat donors are going to say, wait, you told us you were going to deliver and you haven't. I think at that point, it becomes a head-to-head race and a very clear choice between the most successful executive in my lifetime in government, Ron DeSantis, and President Trump, who promised a lot of things and didn't deliver.
One of the things we're talking with Representative Thomas Massie, one of the things that I've been sort of getting all the listeners and the people who are watching the simulcast accustomed to is that it is a marathon. It's not a sprint to the finish, and it's a delegate race, but it's also a race of survival. And you mentioned she's not even competing in the caucuses in Nevada, but if she has the cash flow, which she's expected to pick up quite a bit in Texas. They have the Bushwing, the Roves, literally the entire establishment, people that I protested against back in the early days when helping to co-found the Tea Party in 2008. Those individuals are helping to finance her campaign. She's got back-to-back fundraisers coming up in Texas. I mean, talk a little bit about that, because that goes a long way regardless of how many delegates you're picking up.
Yeah, if she can't put gas in the tank, you can't go forward. I mean, ultimately, that's what Iowa and New Hampshire do. It takes a lot of money to get through those states. And it was always the case that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Trump were the only ones who were going to be able to make it past these first 2 states. I do think she set expectations too high, and that her donors bought into a plan that's not materializing. She said she would take out Ron in Iowa. It didn't happen. She said she would take out Trump in New Hampshire. Not going to happen. She's not going to compete in Nevada, and she's not going to win South Carolina. I think her donors are going to look at that and say, I don't know. And meanwhile, coming out of Iowa, I think Trump has 20 delegates, Ron DeSantis has 9, and Nikki Haley has 8. Those are rough numbers, and they could possibly get assigned differently. And that's less than 2% of the delegates, right? And you're still going to be at less than 3% of the delegates when you come out of New Hampshire. It's very early. Personally, I would like to see Kentuckians have a say in who the nominee is going to be. And we go after Super Tuesday. Yeah. So we're used to having the final say, but a lot of times it's said before we get there. So at least let's see this through to Super Tuesday. That's my opinion. People deserve a choice. We shouldn't coronate, the last candidate who frankly lost to Joe Biden. Do we want a rematch? I don't believe these polls, by the way, that show, that Trump is beating Joe Biden in these purple states. If that is true, wait until the Democrats turn, or the media, I should say, sometimes the same thing. Yeah. Wait until they turn on Trump, and then it becomes about his issues. They want to campaign on his issues. Ron DeSantis wants to campaign on the people's issues going forward. We should be looking forward, not in the rearview mirror.
No, I think that's a very good point. I share your perspective on this. I'm like, I usually like Super Tuesday because it is a delegate race, and a lot of people look at percentages, but it's hard when not every state's winner take all. Some are awarded, proportionately, to the win, et cetera. I want to move on here because we've got a whole bunch of other stuff to hit. We were talking about the border. We were also getting into, I wanted to bring this up really quickly, the surveillance. Now, this Congressman Jim Jordan, and I know others in House Judiciary Committee, they sent this letter to the former director of the Office of this title's long, former director of the Office of Stakeholder Integration Engagement, blah, 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 basically saying, Treasury Department, the search terms and merchant category codes coming up, everything from Zelle to Bible to they would even touch on former lawmakers, like even Trump, everything that would somehow flag. They've done this to firearms, LLCs too. They've done this to gun stores as well. From what I understand, this kicked off in January before Biden assumed office in 2021. Are we now only just finding out how far this went, and why is that?
Yeah, this is something we just uncovered. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, and I'm also on the Weaponization Committee, which is a select subcommittee. And Jim Jordan and I, we started pulling on this string that we found from January 6th, where a whistleblower who, worked at the FBI told us that they had, the FBI asked the Bank of America to basically do a dragnet through all of their database of their customers, find anybody who had purchased a gun anywhere in the United States, not constrained to a certain period of time, using a Bank of America card, and then who was present on January 6th or at the inauguration later. They were doing this dragnet. They weren't investigating suspects. They were trying to create suspects out of all Americans who have a Bank of America card. Now, they also asked other banks to do this without a warrant. This is the key thing. No warrant, no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion even. They're just casting a net through all of the customer data records. So, and they also asked other banks to do this, but we do know from Bank of America admitted to us that they did comply with the FBI's request. Now, as we pulled on that thread, we found what you're talking about. They wanted to establish these tags. And even like the names of, I won't give them advertisement here on your show, but the names of sporting goods stores, if you shopped at different sporting goods stores, you would, they wanted to tag you to, identify extremists, radicals, lone wolves. Ridiculous, because in middle America, I feel bad giving out gift cards at Christmas to these sporting goods places. I just tagged all of my family.
Oh, you did. Well, in a lot of these places, that's the big store you go to. I mean, my family's in Southern Missouri. Those are the big stores you go to. That's like some of the biggest retailers that are around, unless you want to drive, an hour and a half or 2 hours north to a JCPenney. I will say that one, because that's the big one.
Right. I didn't have time to shop this year. I've been busy in Congress. So I was like, well, let's get them gift cards and they can buy guns or ammo or whatever they want. That's the other thing. And by the way, on the trail, Ron's been talking about central bank digital currencies, and so have some of the other candidates, and eliminating those, the need to. And we've been accused of being conspiracy theorists. That, you're saying they want to, do central bank digital currency so that they could check your social credit score and track, did you buy too much ammo? Did you put too much gas in your car? Whereas that's actually already going on. That's what, Jim Jordan and I and others on Judiciary Committee are discovering. It's already going on. The central bank digital currency just gives them an off switch when where they could just, after they've decided that you've spent too much on these things, they could turn it off.
Wow, there's a lot, and I know you're still pulling on that string, and hopefully we can get, is there a way to just, real quick, last question, is there a way to stop this? Like, how can we protect consumers?
They claim what they're doing is legal. They're going to try to claim that. They're using, laws that were supposed to, this is the irony, laws that were supposed to protect your financial data, but written into those laws are loopholes. So I do think we need legislation in the Judiciary Committee, and hopefully we can bring that to the floor.
Yeah,
now that we know what they're doing with the existing laws, we need to change them and make it explicit. You cannot do this.
I'm so glad that y'all found that and have been on it. Of course, we knew the guy who made his own debt clock to terrify us all every single time we see him. You guys were talking on break about how many a minute, and I can't even deal with it. I'm already going to have nightmares tonight. This thing tallies up every.
Yeah, it's a $1 trillion every 140 days. It's $85,000 a second. The rate has just gone through the roof. And this summer, here's what I don't like about the deal that's in the House right now. This summer, we agreed to raise the debt limit in exchange for spending caps and spending cuts. And now it's like the White House and the Senate have buyer's remorse and they're trying to renegotiate the deal. I don't think we should. I think we should hold them to the caps this summer.
Yes, sir. I agree completely. And I think it's the right way to go. Representative Thomas Massie, so appreciate your fight. So appreciate
Thanks.
it. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk again soon.